An area of investing that is getting a lot of attention right now are clinical stage biopharma companies. And today we're going to talk about Sorrento Therapeutics. So if we're talking about clinical stage biopharma companies, there's something we gotta actually take a step back and realize. This is a little bit different from your major pharmaceutical companies like your Johnson & Johnson, your Mercks, your Bayers, all of those names that you may be very familiar with. These are a little different because clinical stage is exactly as the name says. They are focused on developing biopharma products at the clinical stage, which means oftentimes they may not have very substantial revenue. And you'll notice when we get to the financials, they're burning through a lot of cash. They have a ton of expenses because they're still in the clinical stage trial. Now, usually I probably wouldn't talk much about these companies, but because every country in the world and every place is looking for a solution to coronavirus, that brings these into light, and there's a lot of investment activity going on around these clinical stage biopharma companies. Now, as we always do when you're doing your homework, we always like to start off with what are the products, because you want to know what type of biopharma products are they working on. Now, for this company, the first one is going to be in the area of oncology, where they are developing therapeutics for cancer treatment. Now, we know that cancer is a huge issue around the world, and there is so much research going into how do we come up with solutions to fight it, to give treatments, to help people recover, and to help prevent people from having the issue of fighting for their life when it comes down to cancer. Now, the next area that we have to look at is their pain management. Now, as we know, there is an opioid epidemic that has become a huge focus in the last few years within the US. So Sorrento has actually been working on some products in that area to come up with non-opioid related pain management products and solutions. So that is another area where I would say they get a plus in that area. And then when we come down to the one that every clinical stage biopharma company is really hyper focused on is COVID-19. What can they develop around COVID-19? Now, what gives Sorrento a little bit of an edge, in my opinion, is their extensive research around antibodies that they were already doing and being able to leverage that to actually aid in what they're doing around COVID-19. And at the time of doing this filming, that I think it was around early September that they received approval to move their stage one, I guess you say their phase 1 clinical trials, to move it to the next stage from the FDA approval. So when it comes down to the products, I would say in the area of oncology, area of pain management, and the area of COVID-19, that this company really has their hands on some very critical areas that I think make this product probably an A category, because they're solving some really big problems and some problems that a lot of people are paying attention to. Now, as I gave the preface, when we said clinical stage, you're going to notice some interesting things about their finances. Now, we won't spend a whole lot of time here, but you'll see why. So, as we pull up their finances and we look at the financials, a couple of things jump out to me. The first thing is that, of course, their gross margin is impressive, but when you compare their gross margin and you jump down to their operating profit, what you quickly realize is that they are dumping tons of money into R&D research. And because they are putting so much into R&D research, they're actually ending up with a loss at the end of the year. So the question you ask is, how can you continually lose that much money and still stay in business? And that is because the old adage says that cash is king. As long as they have cash being infused into their business, they can continue to keep their operations going. Now, when it comes to clinical stage biopharma companies, the name of the game is, can you get a biopharma product approved through the FDA process to actually sell and have a product that you can sell on the market. Now, when it comes to your clinical stage biopharma companies, a lot of times the ways that they are getting cash are going to either be through government grants, or a lot of times it's going to be they're going to sell stock or equity in their business for people who expect that this company is going to do very well in the future. So if you look at kind of their operating cash flow, you see they're in a negative position, but yet they still do have cash on their balance sheet. And that is because they have offered equity to potential investors or to investors that would like to invest in the company because they believe that Sorrento is going to come up with a solution. They're betting that something good is going to come out of Sorrento. Now, from my personal perspective, just looking at the financials, I would say because it is a pretty big bet on whether or not they will be able to come up with a viable product at the end, I would give their financial section, I would give that area a D. They're not self-sustaining. Without being able to continue generating cash from investments or from financing activity, they wouldn't be able to survive. Now, when I look at the other area, the area that's probably going to be the most important to you is when we look at how do you make money. And that is when we look at where the stock price is and we start figuring out, hey, what's the potential of this stock price? So when we look at this, at the time that we are doing this filming, the stock price is currently $10.78 a share. Now, it has been at the height, and if you look at the charts there, you'll see that it's at the height because all of the press around COVID-19. As in the political arena, the president has been talking about there being a solution that we can expect by the end of the year. And earlier today, at the time of this filming, I was hosting a webinar with a PhD in chemistry who's actually on the Duke Institute, I guess you say the Duke Vaccine Institute. And one of the things that she pointed out is, based on what she's seen from the research, a coronavirus vaccine could be likely by the end of 2020 or early 2021. So when you look at where Sorrento is as a business, from a product standpoint, I gave them an A because they have products that are solving a really big problem. And even if you look a little bit closer at some of their products, you'll see that some of their products that they're working on in early stages have actually began to progress to actually late stage products, which means they are very close to having viable products that can be sold on the open market. Now, when it came down to the finances, I gave them a D because the finances are definitely not admirable in any way. The only way that they are staying alive is by being able to generate cash from investing or financing activity, more so as selling stock or equity to investors, is the only way that they're able to stay alive because their expenses far outweigh what they are able to bring in. And that's very common in this sector, but I would give them a D in that area. But then when it comes down to the potential of the stock, because they do have quite a few products that are late stage, I think that there is some significant opportunity for them to actually see significant growth when it comes to their stock. So in that area, I also give them an A. And then when you round all of this up, what you will notice is their overall score comes to about a B plus because they have a great product, finances are not so great, but they also have great potential in growth. So if you're looking for a clinical stage biopharma company, Sorrento may be one you want to look into and do a little bit of homework on.